Hello, this is Pearl. So I know that I haven't been sharing videos lately, and I'm sorry. The last sentence of the last chapter I read says, "But they were pilgrims and must make the most of what was provided for them." I thought that was funny that was the last sentence of the last chapter I read, but even so, I'm going to try to be uploading videos more often and not have such longer pauses between each upload. So, thank you for your patience. Today, finally, I'm reading Little Pilgrim's Progress, Christiana, Chapter 61, The King's Arbor. The little pilgrims sat quietly in the king's arbor, eating their fruit and talking happily together, while Greatheart stood in the doorway, watching them. "We must not rest too long," he said presently, "for we have still some distance to go, and the sun will soon be setting." James and Joseph sprang up at once, and started off hand in hand. All their bravery had come back again, and they whispered to each other that they would not mind very much even if they were alone. "Greatheart says the king is so good, and we know he took care of little Christian," said Joseph. "Yes," said James, "and if we love him he will not let anyone hurt us, so I think we had better not feel frightened any more." When Christiana saw her two little brothers set off so quickly, she made haste to follow them. The kind interpreter had given her a bottle filled with refreshing drink, and she had not gone very far before she found that she had left this bottle in the king's arbor. James ran back to look for it, and while they were waiting for him, Mercy said, "Did not Christian lose his roll here? This seems to be a forgetting place." Greatheart smiled, and Christiana asked why pilgrims lost things in that arbor. "I remember," she said, "that I have heard of other pilgrims who have had to turn back here to look for something that they had left behind." "It is only because they are careless," replied Greatheart. "They are tired with climbing the hill, and the rest in the arbor makes them feel comfortable and happy. Very often they are tempted to sit here longer than they ought to do, or they fall asleep, as little Christian did. They start up in such a hurry that they are almost sure to lose something without noticing it." James soon returned with the bottle in his hand, and the little pilgrims climbed steadily up the hill until they reached the place where Mistrust and Timorous had met little Christian and frightened him by telling him of the lions. The two foolish boys were afterward caught and punished by the king's servants, and a stone was placed by the wayside, with some words written upon it advising pilgrims not to listen to persons who tried to persuade them that the way of the king was too difficult or dangerous for them. "But there are some lions, are there not?" asked Joseph. "Yes," replied Greatheart, "but you need not be afraid of them." Joseph looked at his brother, and the two little fellows clasped each other's hands more tightly. "I don't know whether I should quite like to meet a lion," whispered James. "It might be a very savage one. We will try not to mind, but we had better keep close to Greatheart." The sun had now set, and the shadows were deepening every moment. The lions were wide awake when the children came in sight, and they both stood up and roared very loudly. Poor little James and Joseph shook with fear, and they slipped behind Greatheart, who had drawn his sword and held it in his hand, ready to strike the lions if they sprang forward. The great beasts were chained, but the path between them was very narrow, and the savage creatures sometimes tried to seize the pilgrims, who wished to pass by them. Thank you for listening.